I'd like to welcome you all to the Educational Talks of Chicago Glow 2022. Hope you're all having a great time. Are you? And at this time, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jody Brites.
They say I'm passionate about American-made glass Christmas ornaments, and I think I am, but not as much as the people you see in the photographs there. The girls are the granddaughters of Max Eckardt. He was the founder of Shiny Brites, so that's Lynn, Allison, and Anne. Now you look at their tree, it's covered in ornaments because their grandfather was incredibly passionate about Christmas. He loved everything about Christmas with one exception. If you look at the picture of the tree, there's no tinsel. Because the one thing that Max Eckardt detested was the German invention of tinsel. If you look at the Franke family on the other side, that's Edward Philip Franke and his children. He is the grandson of George Franke, who founded the firm in Baltimore in 1868. When I interviewed the young boy, who's now the great-grandson of George Franke, he said his dad was, he said, Jody, you know how my dad felt about Christmas? I said, you're the Franke family, you're the decorators. He said, Dad saw Christmas 365 days a year. So these two people, these two families, were decorators of American-made glass Christmas ornaments. So that's one thing that I always get my arms around is decorating firms versus manufacturing firms. Before the fierce rivalry and selling dozens and millions of ornaments, you had a manufacturing rivalry. So one thing, as a collector, I always had to train myself to say, Corning bulbs. Corning bulbs. Because we all say Shiny Brites, right? That's how we all refer to them, as Shiny Brites. But really, they're Corning bulbs decorated by firms. So Corning, you know the story from Yesterday with Kathy, right? Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, they were the first ones to make American-made glass Christmas ornaments in 1939. The bulbs started out extremely plain in the late 1930s. You can see they had a simple lantern, they had a simple round bulb. The first year that Corning made bulbs, they only made 1 million. They were only round, and they basically missed the Christmas selling season in 1939. The star lantern that you see is from 1942, but the bulbs themselves, if you look at the simpleness of them, right? They're very, very simple. The first American-made glass Christmas ornaments were incredibly simple. If you look on the other side, this is the firm that everyone is really interested in nowadays, the Premier Glassworks. So I like to say, before we say there's only Corning, there's actually 2 American-made manufacturing firms. You have Corning, and you have Premier Glassworks, who started in the 1920s as a bulb manufacturer for automobiles, and then they made glass laboratory equipment. So the Premier Glassworks, Adam Gabar and his brother Walter, started that firm with a man by the name of Angelo Paoni. Now, I've been talking to the Paoni family, and their dad never owned Premier Glassworks. It was the Gabar brothers who owned it. Angelo had a lot of the manufacturing technology. The first Premier bulbs, you can actually go back probably to 1935. So when you talk about American-made glass Christmas ornaments, actually, you could argue that Premier was actually before Corning. Those are highly collectible today, but Premier started out very simply too. The ribbed bulb, the dimple reflector. They had very simple bulbs. But they also were the first to have branded caps. There are 3 versions of Premier caps. There's a square slot plain, there's a Premier square slot, and there's a Premier USA cap. So they started out, we always talk about shiny Brites having branded caps. Look really close at your premieres, and you may have a Premier branded cap. So these firms were actually the first ones to sell American-made glass Christmas ornaments. Prior to this, the 17 years that happened before this, there was only 240 million bulbs imported into the United States. When they come along, it's up to 80 million ornaments a year that are going to be manufactured, and in the peak year, it's 100 million ornaments. But I like to say in the 1930s and the early 1940s, it was kind of plain. Plain bulbs, and the prize accounts at that time were Woolworths and Sears. So Sears actually sourced their American-made glass Christmas ornaments from both Shiny Brites and Premier. They had the big selling rivalry. The first dozens of ornaments sold for 39 cents. Now remember that. Woolworths was selling, what, 5-cent bulbs. Mail order isn't going to live off of 5-cent bulbs. And I don't know about you, but I grew up in a few ornaments, and you're not going to ship a lot, right? You want to protect it. They need to be in cardboard boxes, and you want to sell a dozen of them. So the big push, once we had the technology, was to actually start selling good bulbs to Sears and Woolworths, and I want to sell them by the dozen. And they're going to compete on product. The technology races forward in such a quick way. This is the funnest industry to study because it's a Christmas ornament, but it starts out as a small 2¼ inch bulb, and within a couple of years, we have the technology, thanks to K&W Glassworks, to put a stripe on it. So when you think about that, it happens in just 3 years. So technology advances so you can have transparency, you can have stripes, they start putting mica on, and then on the Premier, they have the railroad lantern, they advance, they have a few more molds, teardrop reflector, and they also actually at this point have a new cap. So you have the plain Premier cap with the 2 different size prongs, okay? But the technology is racing along that allows them to start to compete on product. Until Shiny Bright pulls away, 1949, they start this juggernaut of new designs. In 1949, you have at least 7 new designs that are introduced. Merry Christmas with Holly Spray, Silent Night Animated Tomb, Hammer Top Finish, Hammer Finish, which comes in pink, green, gold, and silver. And that dates to 1949. You have Star of Bethlehem, Santa with Sleigh. You have Christmas Village and Stars. Premier cannot compete with that level of new designs. Because remember what's happened. Every year, smash, right? And people want more ornaments, and they want new ornaments. So Shiny Bright begins to pull away. Womp, womp. Now I was going to put the sound of one of my ornaments breaking. But I decided that was bad karma today. Because I know I'm going to be buying more tonight. And as I walk out to the car, I'd probably trip. Womp, womp, womp. Shiny Bright's Rise, Premier Glassworks. And that happens prior to 1955. The Gabar brothers want out. Shiny Bright wants to add, ta-da, more decorating factories. So look at your boxes, because you're going to see the additions of Hoboken and Irvington versus West New York and North Bergen. And those come from their acquisition of Premier Glassworks. So coming out of the 1940s, Shiny Bright's going to win the race. Now, I don't know what keeps you up at night. Ginger said it was the speakers showing up. That's what keeps her up at night. World peace should keep me up at night, but it is actually the twist that has kept me up at night. People say to me all the time, Jody, who made the twist? Look at the caps. On the pink twist, you have a corrugated shiny red cap. On the gold twist, you have an original Premier cap. So did I switch them? I've looked at dozens of twists. And I think what happened was when Shiny Bright bought Premier Glassworks, they acquired the means to make a twist. So you can have a Shiny Bright twist, and you can have a Premier Glass twist, but I think that Shiny Brights either had the technology when they acquired Premier to make them, because I don't think they could have given them Old Corning to make them. So I think the answer to the world peace, what happened with the twist argument is, it could be Premier and it could be Shiny Bright. This is when the battle really heats up. George Franke's son's company, they were tinsel manufacturers coming out of, well, they were tinsel manufacturers throughout their entire legacy of Christmas decorations. But they really start to get into bulb making, bulb decorating. Now remember, Corning is making the bulbs in Wellsboro, but Shiny Brights and George Franke are decorating them and selling them. They are selling the same exact bulb. So repeat after me. Corning bulbs.
Corning bulbs.
Shiny Brights.
Shiny Brights.
Franke's.
Franke's.
Bought from Corning Glass Works.
Corning Glass Works.
Great. So now we all know they're Corning bulbs, right? The battle really heats up because there's more disposable income coming out of the war. It heats up. Everybody's selling Christmas. Hardware stores, because of their toy lines, want to sell Christmas ornaments. Nobody wants to sell 39-cent boxes of ornaments. They want to sell $1.49, $1.79. So the price starts going up because we have the new designs and the new shapes. So in the 1950s, everybody starts to compete on promotion. George Franke's son's company, they start advertising in Life magazine. Max Eckardt gets the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. Magazine advertising in 1955 is a $660 million business. And everybody wants to advertise in magazines. So that's where they start to really ramp up the branding of Shiny Brights. From 1951 to 1955, at least 15 new scenic designs and shapes are issued by Shiny Brights. Merry Christmas with Poinsettia, Christmas Joy, Jingle Bell Animated Tune. The Christmas tree shape comes in 1952. Diamond cluster or quilted, please do not call it a golf ball. Just saying. Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty in the nursery rhymes debut. They're included one per assortment. Deer Scene, 1952. Little Bo Peep. And then you have the infamous Stagecoach Scene. But there are 15 new designs that blow the water out from 1951 to 1955. Shiny Bright is just this juggernaut of introducing new designs. George Franke is not going to let the race go. Corning, for a time, actually divided the country into two sections because both are selling the exact same Corning bulbs. So Max Eckardt Shiny Bright supposedly at the West Coast, George Franke at the East Coast, but I can tell you in Wisconsin we had Shiny Bright, so I don't know what you call the middle part of the United States if you were Corning, but we had Shiny Brights. But they are going to go head to head. So if Shiny Brights comes out with Jingle Bell Animated Tune, George Franke answers with, "O come all ye faithful." If Shiny Brites comes out with the infamous toy scene, George Franke answers with whimsy. So they're going to compete head-to-head with these. So if you really start looking at your collections, you'll see the progression. It starts out plain, there's the scenic designs, and then you can see song lyrics coming in and all the different versions of Merry Christmas, right? I'm partial to Merry Christmas with Holly Sprite, and that's the bulb on the right-hand side there. Now, Shiny Bright modern caps, there are at least 3 versions of what I consider to be a modern Shiny Bright cap. After the war, there's just a light little stamping of Shiny Bright, made in USA, versus made in US-A, which we saw earlier, right? So then the Shiny Bright actually has 2 other cap styles that are stamped, and they're stamped differently in the lettering. It's corrugated, it's stamped Shiny Bright. George Franke says made in USA, and it's scalloped. So that's how you tell the difference, because it's the exact same bulb. Christmas is everywhere. Did you know that grocery stores were actually using Christmas ornaments as giveaways in the 1950s? Buy a ham, get some ornaments. Works out, really, why would you not do that today? Buy a sack of flour and get a 6-pack. I don't know. Christmas is everywhere. Grocery stores, hardware stores, the discounters, W.T. Grant, Skaggs, Thrifty, Walgreens. They want their piece of the pie. So did you ever wonder why all of a sudden you could buy a 6-pack or a 5-pack of ornaments? It kind of bothered me. Why is that? The price point for selling dozens of ornaments had actually risen to nearly $2. They were discount stores. They can't afford to sell $2 items. So the discounters actually jump into the game and say, give me something to sell for less than $1. So you get 5-pack ornaments, 6-pack ornaments. The 3-pack red velvet bow comes in with the jumbo ornaments to stay under that $1 price point. It's such a heyday. And then, remember when I said, so prior to American-made glass Christmas ornaments coming into vogue, we had 240 million European ornaments coming to the United States. And Woolworths sold those as single ornaments. Well, guess what happens? We go round in a circle, don't we? Because the discounters go back to selling 5-cent, 10-cent, 15-cent ornaments. And you can find those caps today. I don't know if I was happier the day I got married or the happier the day I bought a 15-cent cap ornament. It's kind of a tough part. No offense, honey. So look for those 5, 10, and 15-cent caps, because I find them fascinating. Christmas is absolutely everywhere. Branding becomes in. In 1957, we have to have impulse purchases, so Harold Eckardt takes over for Max. And we have the Christmas tree window box. And that's a beautiful box. But if you also look at that box, you're going to see the same reuse of those bulbs that were on festival bulbs earlier. George Franke introduces snowflakes for their impulse box. And so branding becomes absolutely key to keep selling Christmas ornaments. But what happens? 1955, Max Eckardt sells Shiny Brites. Harold stays on with the company, but George Franke wins the coveted Woolworths account. So George Franke now is selling a massive amount of Corning glass bulbs. See, it was a race for Sears, then it was a race for Woolworths, and then it's going to change into another race that they're trying to win. George Franke goes up against the new upstart that's buying Corning glass bulbs. Kobe Glass. That crazy George Kobe, he was an inventor of concrete. He had all these different inventions, and he goes bankrupt, and then he says, I'm going to get into the Christmas ornament business. It looks good. So George Franke in the 1960s is going to go head-to-head with George Kobe's until George can actually get his manufacturing up and running. And you know, the thing about it is Corning thought Kobe glass was a little sketchy. They were actually required to pay for their bulbs from Corning Glass Works before they would be shipped to Corning Glass Works, or to Kobe Glass. So they were cash and pay on demand, and that was kind of a crazy thing. You have a lot more competition, though, in the 1960s. You have a lot more imports coming in. Times change. George Kobe introduces his snowman. You have a lot of glitter coming in terms of the 1960s. It's a crazy time. Max Eckardt sold his firm for $500,000, roughly $5 million today. When George Franke's family, Edward Philip Franke II, sells the firm, he sells the firm for $2 million in 1968, roughly $20 million. And they go, wah, 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 wah. But Kobe Glass is really going strong because everybody wants the Kmart business. So Kobe Glass goes up against Roush Industries in North Carolina. And North Carolina, they can blow their own glass bulbs. After Roush Industries patents the way to wrap the textiles around the styrofoam bulb for Spiegel, then Roush Industries actually develops their own blowing technology, which is still in place today. So Kobe Glass is going up against the juggernaut of Roush Industries to see who can service Kmart. And Roush wins. Roush goes on to eventually buy the Christopher Radko brand, and they're still in business today. So you start out the Premier going against Shiny Brites. Shiny Brites takes on George Franke. George Franke takes on Kobe Glass. Kobe Glass takes on Roush. But you know, the story is so cool because it really starts out prior to 1939, we want to go back to 1935. We're selling single ornaments in the United States for 5 cents. We have the technology in the U.S. to make our own ornaments, and now we can sell by the dozens. We can make 1 billion ornaments a decade. Prior to that, 17 years, there was only 240 million Christmas ornaments coming into the United States. I find that fascinating. And then everybody's after mail order, and then we have to have new shapes. The price goes up. We have new competition. We have advertising, branding, and department stores and giveaways. And then we go back to where we started, trying to sell ornaments for less than $1 and fewer than a dozen. I think that's just a fascinating continuum that starts in the 1930s until we're probably where we are today. I thank anyone for buying my first book, Immigrants, Ornaments, and Legacies, A Story of American-Made Classic Christmas Ornaments. I'm so blessed to have the glow in my life. I really am. Did you notice I said that was my first book on Christmas? That was the book I wanted to write. The book you wanted me to write was the one with pretty colored pictures in it. So published as of Monday, furiously, my graphic designer Alex and I have put together 290 pictures, 40 boxes. And this book is dedicated to the Golden Globe. So I hope that's a good resource for you. I saw a couple of cell phone pictures, or cell phones pop up while I was speaking to take the pictures. In here, I named the ornaments, Tom. I couldn't tell you Tuesday night that, but I named the ornaments, and if I can give you the year, I put it in here also. So I hope that's a good resource for you. If you want to have a story to read on vacation, read the other book with the 358 footnotes to dazzle your friends. A shout out to my favorite guy. My husband is the one who puts together my YouTube videos. We have 17,519 videos encouraging people to join the Golden Globes. We say that in every video. We only have 309. I wouldn't be standing here without the Golden Globe. If I'm not going to say that in a video, come on, let's get some members, right? 17,519 views and only 399 subscribers, and I'd like to engage with people to know what you want me to make videos on, so if you could subscribe, the new season is getting ready to start. Booksbyjody.com has the 1959 George Franke catalog posted, and it also has shiny bright ads on there that you might get a kick out of. So that's a great place to go for more information.